Welcome to Dysfictional, the RPG-focused podcast where we tread the swampland so you don't have to. I'm Randy, the Random Generator.
I'm Ginger, professional film industry victim.
I'm Tukey, former academic gone rogue. And what kind of topics we got on the plate for tonight there, Ginger?
I want to talk about death.
Oh, good. I'm already dead inside. I've always been wanting to talk about it.
Lovely topic.
The sweet, sweet embrace of death. All millennials want it, but how can you bring it into your RPG game successfully?
So is this like an existential thing or death in game? What do we got?
Well, no, in-game death. You know, I've been thinking about it a lot since what happened on Friday happened.
What? No. No one was dipped in lava.
Yeah, there was, let's see, lava. There was some very incapacitating spells on top. There were monsters trying to drag people into the lava. Someone definitely melted. Someone lost their legs.
Uh-oh.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah, things went fine for me.
It's all right. Lieutenant Dang is slowly getting them back.
Yeah. Everybody likes to play out their own Deadpool scenario.
Yes. I'm slowly going through half of the players with a Deadpool-based regeneration. But I mean, specifically, I wouldn't say that, we should have our characters die, but I feel like it's so much more exciting or interesting to have the possibility of your character dying, because it's a consequence. And if you don't have consequences in your game, then I mean, why not just go balls to the wall all the time?
Wait, there's consequences to our characters' actions? I didn't know that.
Oh my god.
I mean, your hand was the first one to grow back.
Oh, that's true. I kind of chose for that, though.
I will say, there was a moment, and I've never actually seen this from you, Randy, but there was a moment during that combat where you looked concerned. I was like, oh no, if he's worried, it's real bad.
Well, there's always while I like challenging and like the possibility of characters dying, I think it's a good thing because it keeps everyone on their toes, and then you're like, oh god, is this it for the characters? But when it's a TPK, I go, oh god, is this it for the party?
Right. That was definitely the closest we've come by far,
for sure,
to TPK. But I will say, and Tukey backed me up on this, when it was over at the end of the night, every single one of us was like, that was the most fun one yet. Like, that was awesome. It was really a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it adds a whole nother level to it, right? Like, I mean, no one wants their character to die, especially
Nor
when
should
you get. Yeah, exactly. Especially as you get connected to a character. I think, if anything, while you're playing, if you have a feeling that you don't want your character to die, that probably means you're enjoying playing the character, which is good. But like you said, I mean, it can add a really impactful element to the story, to the group. If a character does legitimately dies, I mean, it can take the group on a whole another quest, right? Like maybe finding a way to get this person back, which has happened to us before in a previous campaign for a little bit, and or solidify the group to where they're like rallying together. Maybe the cooperation's not great. Someone dies and they're like, oh, crap, we're facing some really tough things. We need to work together better. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tough back and forth. Like I said, no one wants to lose their character, especially after you get more and more invested in it, but it can be good in a sense for a story.
I think also the towing the line, like going down and stuff like that, and how does it affect your character? I think I've spoke about this before, where a difference between a soldier who would think death is another day, and then there's got the merchant who's died once, and now it's like their whole life has been changed. They've seen this, like they don't know what to do, and they could go a good route from that point and trying to like be a better person or be a better fighter or something like that, or they could go a bad route. They would, accept any power they could to not have to feel that week again.
Yeah, that's very true. I think for me, it's like my death of my character related anxiety is less if they die or not, and more like, does the death serve a purpose or was it stupid?
Yeah.
Yeah, like your character just dying in a mimic house.
Exactly. Like, you never want to just go roll a nat 1 on a scouting roll in the woods by yourself and then ruin the whole campaign for everybody.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
That would be awful. But also, it's like, as when you're going, especially with a story as long as we've been going on this one, which, I mean, we're in over a year now with these characters. It becomes less about like the actual character, whether she dies or not, and more about like, but do I get to find out like what the story was like what she was supposed to do? Because there's a lot of like sort of fate and stuff involved in this campaign, and it's like, it would suck if like the whole, like you said, if the whole party TPK'd and like all of our new people have no connection to those story threads. It's like, I'm one of those people that cannot put a book down, and I have to know how this story ends, whether I'm alive or not.
and like, well, you could Deus Ex like, oh, this person's like, oh, that's from that tribe that person died from, and bring all the random NPCs that are now the players back just to finish the story. That feels kind of cheesed out.
It doesn't. It wouldn't feel right.
Yeah, and then you just have your new characters finishing up what your old characters did, and at that point it's like, well, then why did I kill you off? But like, there's also, I think, with that's kind of the trick with the campaign too, is having a campaign that's seems bigger than the party, and the party should be the heroes. Like, that is the whole point of this, but it should be a story that could be a lot of hands into it. So like, your character's father is a part of this. We've got, someone's family. We've got gods involved. We've got a bunch of people that you actually could, if one of the players died, they could be plucked from another thing and even have an extra story to add to it. Oh, this group that you guys have been hunting, well, this is a person who's got all the intel about them now,
I think it also depends when this happens, because, for example, if you're a month or two into a year plus campaign, probably a lot easier of a situation to handle, versus if you're over a year into a campaign that you think you have maybe a couple of months left of sessions or something, then maybe it's a little different of how you handle it or what other character you bring in. Again, I agree with what you're saying, though, that like the story itself would still finish. But then at the same point, just like Ginger mentioned, there might be certain character things that you were working towards that you really got invested in, but then no one else is there to continue those. And those would get sort of lost, again, unless you, like you mentioned, brought in a character that's somehow connected to it. But yeah, still a good point. Then you're kind of still playing the same character. So it's a tricky situation, but timing definitely can have a big impact.
Yeah, and people keep kind of giving me crap about this, but there's a reason that my character keeps giving all of our other quest info to her dad. And it's because if we all did TPK last Friday, someone would still know what was coming, right? Like, you have to have that third safety person out there in the world, because and like, it's not just like, oh, I'm talking to my dad. Like, he's a military entity, so like, it would be someone who's appropriate to tell, and not just like some random villager or something. But yeah, you always have to like, you'd be like, oh, if we all died, all this knowledge died with us, then the whole plane would be at stake, right? Like, no one else is on this problem, right? So it's part of like, I see it as part of her responsibility as part of the guild to like make sure they're not the only ones that can handle it, which is like a way to kind of build that in as well.
Which, and not only that, it even sort of brings up a similar idea of having a contingency plan if your character does die. Like, you've had the idea of being a family member that's fairly closely related, and even could be on a vengeance mission, could just be finishing what my sibling or whatever started, or even just going on a vengeance spree and just totally making an evil character just because, like, I'll destroy everyone who even tried to hurt her.
Yeah, but then I decided I didn't want to do that.
I mean, maybe this is a weird take on it, but I also kind of think it could be interesting to fail, right? Like, I mean, especially in the current campaign we're doing, right? Like, if say, like you're saying, well, that information, like that's your character who would also want to spread that information. But say we didn't have that, and say our party does wipe, and that timeline is screwed. And then maybe another campaign picks up some point, like the remains of the aftermath of what happened on that one. Almost like I don't know, the Legend of Zelda timeline, where there's versions of it where like Link fails, right?
Yeah,
it could be pretty interesting, I think, to have that too, where a party dies and fails, and there'll be another campaign at some point to pick it up. Now, I get if you just like left it like that, like, yeah, sure, it could be sort of unsatisfying, but I think if you turned it into like a lead-in for another campaign, it could be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, this is specifically going on a bunch of like a more TPK situation where the whole party has to re-roll and stuff. Like finding a new party member, yeah, there could be like threads that are sort of lost and stuff, but at least those can be mended much easier than having a whole party who is now the new chosen group to defeat something. And this campaign in particular is, apocalyptic style, so they could still fail. Like your party could fail doing what it's trying to do, and then all of a sudden the world is gone, and now what from there as well. So even if they do survive, it doesn't mean that they win, but it's great that those characters saw it to the end at least.
Yeah, it would be interesting if you ran a campaign where, like, if your character died and a new character would have to come in at, like, a different point. It would be interesting if, like, the player literally, like, had to leave until they came back in and missed everything that happened in between.
I guess I'll go to the bathroom
like, what
for
happened?
an hour or two.
You weren't there. You don't know.
Yeah.
The other thing with individual character death, right, is how your feelings of not wanting the character to die could impact how the character itself plays, or kind of like making sure it doesn't happen, right? So current campaign, my character goes down often because they are very reckless in battle. I have probably never been more connected to a character than I am at this point with the current one, but I am literally not changing one bit of how they fight in combat. Like, I'm making sure that the character stays true to themselves. Like, they're probably more at risk now than they've ever been, even though I'm more connected and don't want the character to die. So it's a tough thing, but I don't know. I feel like that's important sometimes. Just how would the actual character be, handling themselves?
And I've had it where, I've got always 10 characters in the back of my head prepped and ready to go. So like, while I'm always connected to my characters and I love playing them, I've had the ones where they will be the first person to run away at the first sign of a fist going in the air. And that's not because I don't want them to die. It's because they don't want to die.
Yep. Yeah, I think, and it's been interesting too, because I was waiting quite a while in this campaign for my character to go down for the first time. So it really only happened recently because
must be nice.
She's a spell sniper, so she can stay really far away. And we've had some battles where like I was literally not on the field the whole time, just like taking out stuff from so far away.
and Death Ward.
Yeah, and we always have Death Ward on the party, but her finally going down, I was like, don't res me, like don't like we were in the side like on Discord during the combat. I was like, no, I got it, like because now with Searing Vengeance, like she can get herself back up as long as she gets a death save, but Randy keeps trying to double tap me on the ground. But it makes it really exciting. This last one, you almost had me. You almost pulled me into the lava.
He missed with the kick.
So close.
Didn't I silvery barbs one of those two? I think I did.
One of them, yeah.
He made.
I think it was supposed to be a crit.
He got one hit off, which was two. Well, actually, no. Whenever you're on the ground unconscious, it's automatic crit if they hit. So
yeah, it took two death saves.
Yeah.
And then that last one that would have been the last death save missed.
So close.
And that was a good point you brought up too about, like, your character has a way, so like, don't bother to get me up. But in this last campaign, last battle, my character still did, even though it was less effective. Yeah. Like healing you was way less effective versus just letting you come back literally the next turn. But it's like the character wouldn't see you get hit on the ground and just leave you there. So it's like, that's what they would have done. So you ended up coming back with only a few HP instead of, half or something.
Half.
Yeah.
There's all those fun what ifs too, because can we talk about the gnome family?
No. Yes.
So this was a really special circumstance, right? Where I have a piece of armor that will banish me for my own safety, like take me out of a situation if I fail a save against it. And we were in a demi-plane, and so banishment sends you back to your own plane if you're not on a plane that you're from. So it would have sent me back to the prime plane, and I would not have come back to the battle at the end of the 1 minute. So, which normally would have not been a problem for her. She has teleport. She knew where you were. She could have met up with you after, whatever, like many of other scenarios. She has sending. She could like send a message. But at the beginning of that battle, I got hit with Feeble Mind, which basically makes you completely a vegetable. Like it takes your intelligence to 1. And you can't communicate with anyone or cast any spells, and you only get to save against it once a month. And I would have had to roll a nat 20 to save. And we realized after the fight was over that...
Very high DC.
Yeah, we realized that after the fight was over, if I had gotten banished, I would have just gone out into the world someplace and been unable to message anyone or send spells or communicate or understand language or anything. And I would have just been like lost forever, which is not dying, but it is definitely getting removed from the campaign.
Yeah.
In a way.
Effectively,
it would have taken me, potentially it could have taken me in game years to save against the Feeble Mind.
And not only that, but trying to have someone find you. Even if it would have taken a short amount of time, we probably still would have taken a couple months. And you guys are pressed for time at this point.
Yeah, it would have been a really easy way to be like, whoops, missed the apocalypse. Sorry about it. But Randy, you can tell what your little what if scenario was, because I found it so endearing.
I mean, yeah, I like to do those sort of random like what ifs micro and think on top of my head and kind of make it hilarious, give everyone a laugh. But you were just lost in a place 8 months later, like you're found in a random town with an adopted family of adopted by a family of gnomes who were like, they just thought you were very special. They're kind of taking care of you, and the only way that the group could get you back is by, knocking them out, because they're not going to let you take their daughter. Like, she's helpless. Like, why? No, you're just a bunch of thugs at that point. But then, you knock them out and you get them back. But then the gnomes go on a quest to get their daughter back, and they hire a few other people to kill the kidnappers. And then once Feeble Mind goes away, then they just think you've been enchanted, and they demand to turn you back the way you were and basically Feeble Mind you again.
So then the other aspect to this is what our characters would have done. And I know one of the things that Ginger and I were talking about is that my character may have actually found her, but also decided to just leave her with the family because she seems happy. Like, you know what? She seems happier here and dealing with all the stuff that we got to deal with. So we'll just leave this.
And like an additional kind of funny with that is like, let's say either scenario happened. Specifically, I think the scenario where they have to get her back. Well, that could be a whole nother campaign, which would be hilarious.
We did joke about it being like Domino's What If one shot. Like,
yeah,
really funny.
It's like these two gnomes that are like commoner level, but they've got like demigods all of a sudden, like fighting other demigods at this point.
Yeah, we ran through some scenarios, and then Tukey was finally like, this is just sad now. I don't want to talk about it
No. I think the other way. I think that they would end up going super dark, like making any pact they could. Like I don't care who it is. I just want you to be strong. We are getting her back at any cost.
Wait, the gnomes or the party?
The
I think the gnomes.
I love them so much. I told Tuki that that's my next character is the entire gnome family from this
Perfect.
alternate timeline. That's just my whole next character. So there
Love
you
it.
go. Spoilers. One of the other things that sort of has been coming up a lot lately as we're approaching the apocalypse is solving puzzles and putting together riddles and lore and trying to piece together like tons of information. And I've been wanting to ask you for a while about this because we're bad at it.
What?
I mean,
We're really bad at it. And of course, there's so many memes on the internet that's like, don't give your D&D group like an unlocked, untrapped door because they'll be there 3 sessions trying to figure out how to get the door open. But like, it's kind of real, right? Like puzzle solving in real time is not my strong suit at the very least. Like, I know I'm probably like the worst at it, but my character also has the most pieces of information and it's a conflict between me and her. Like, I feel like sometimes I make her dumber than she actually would be. So yeah, what are your, like, when you're trying to come up with a riddle or a puzzle for us, like, do you have to sit down and go like, okay, but how can I make this a lot easier than it actually should be?
So it really depends. Like, I think the door one is a good example of a trap that you don't want, or not a trap, but a puzzle that you don't want it to be difficult. Because if the party can't continue without going past that door, well, then you've now created something that you either have to have a workaround or that eventually like something needs to happen so that the party can continue. And if it's just like someone opening up the door on the other side, I mean, they don't also get the gratification of solving the puzzle and they could probably feel like he just did the thing. But for my campaign, I've got this, it's intentionally difficult and puzzle for the group to solve, and the purpose of it is something that, you know, you kind of pick up the pieces throughout the campaign, you kind of slowly put them together and stuff. But the thing is, whether you solve it or not just means how much time you have left, you know,
Right.
or what's going to happen and all this other stuff. So like that the puzzle, it only helps the urgency, we'll say, but it doesn't stop you from doing the campaign or continuing and whatnot. So I think that's the benefit of that. Like, it could be the very last minute, like, oh, we gotta go, there's this thing happening, like, crap, I think that's what this thing was all building up to, oh god. And then, you know, now you've got an army on your side or something like that. But
I still think what's going to happen in this case is we'll probably solve the puzzle after it happens and then be like, oh, so that's what that was.
yeah. and then
Tiki, I don't know about you, but all I heard just now was we can just go take a vacation until the apocalypse hits, and then we'll know where to be.
No, I
Yeah.
heard that too. I think we're good. I don't think we have to think about it anymore.
yeah, as one
Let's-
of the party members
you know, let's-
does the apocalypse by himself.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, he probably could handle it, honestly.
He
I mean,
is
he's
basically a demigod now.
he's got my vote, so I think. What do you think, Tuki? Night Sun, you and me, just like find a beach,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just bail.
take a couple months off, just like just.
I mean, I've been suggesting that for a while, but no one listened.
But for the most part, like, I had one puzzle where in a previous campaign where the parties didn't even get to because I have alternate routes. And like, there's the, hey, you don't have to fight anything, you can go right through this door, but it's trapped. Or not trapped, again, sorry, but it's you know, it's a puzzle to get through. But then the other side will have enemies, but you don't have to deal with the puzzle. So it gives them that secondary option, but they didn't even reach the door, they just went the secondary way. And then fell through a pit that was invisible and like broke their kneecaps. So it was great. But then I have other ones that the traps can make something easier, where if you open the door the right way, then an explosion does almost like a trap, but it's more like, I guess it's like a mix between a trapped puzzle. Actually, it would be a great way to put it.
Randy, follow-up question. Why do you hate legs so much?
Well, see, the thing is I have to be the balance for one of our characters who loves legs too much.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
Hmm.
There you go.
The other thing with puzzles too, though, I mean, Ginger, you kind of mentioned it with player versus the character in figuring out the puzzle too. I mean, I think we have all established that I am very notorious at gaslighting myself with information to where even this past week I did it where I was given information and literally the next line of my response back, I already presented the information back incorrectly and then went with that going forward. Literally just a number, like 8th instead of 7th.
That seems like more like a reading comprehension issue.
It could be
look
a lot
into.
of things.
You're like the kind of person that just reads the first sentence in a text message and then just replies.
Yeah. But then how do you correct? And I think you had to handle that this week, Randy. But then how do you correct fixing that? Right? Like how critical is that information versus not? Because then my character, for example, was giving the group a lot of information that they had to try to see if things line up and work together to solve the puzzle. But there was obviously that particular piece incorrect. So yeah, it could be interesting.
Yeah. So rarely I can do like the divine intervention, come in and be like, I'm actually this, just to let you know, because I feel like the character would know that. But like if the barbarian, for example, is the one that's giving out like this lore dump and stuff and he's messing up, I'm like, he probably would mess up. So it really depends on the character. I also tend to allow the skill checks and stuff, or if you aren't sure of the recall but you feel like your character would, and intelligence checks are great for that determination of it. If your character is not one of those like knowledge repeaters and just happens to have all this lore backed into their minds and stuff, but then with certain puzzles and stuff too, it can be character based where like the one that you guys sort of came up with that wasn't necessarily a puzzle, but it was more of a riddle, which, it's a type of puzzle. It was all tied into a character's history. So they knew it and then kind of can provide the information if they want to, while you guys would be totally lost and trapped and stuff. And, things might have to be fudged, but then that's on the other player to then provide the information, which he did in a hilarious way.
Yeah, and sometimes you just go, well, does your character tell my character that thing? And they go, no.
Yep. This is great. You're like, cool.
Well,
awesome.
And that's definitely a big part too, just I think puzzles in general from a player perspective is how do you work with the other players to solve something? I mean, maybe there's a character reason that they solve something themselves, or they don't give other characters information. Or maybe they're the type of character that does actively be like, you know what, this stuff is difficult to think about and that's not my thing. So I'm just going to talk about it with you guys. So I think definitely character can have a big impact on that.
Agreed. I think it's, while I love giving each player basically their opportunity to help solve a puzzle, I also try to, if need be, provide a little bit of redundancy. Like, we don't want, if a player's not going to say something, well, then maybe I'll have another way of another player finding it out at a certain point. It could be a later point and like the information's different enough that it doesn't provide the same context, but you still get the information. And it could be at a point that it's like, oh, this would have been great like 3 days ago and stuff. And the other player's like, ooh, yeah, about that. I kind of knew, and I didn't trust you guys.
Yeah, we've had a lot of that actually with our characters, with Domino and Silica, where Silica will be like, I don't know, man, this is a lot. You should tell the group. And Domino's like, I don't trust them enough. Like, she just wants to bounce it off someone so that she can work through it. She's not expecting you to have the answers, but she has to talk to someone she trusts completely. And for other affiliation reasons, certain people in the group seemed like maybe it would be a bad idea to give them that information too soon. So a lot of it is like mind game puzzles too, where it's like, I want to tell everyone everything, and Randy's like, well, you have orders about not telling anyone all the parts, and like, you know, like, or like, oh, there's like a leak and you don't know who it is, and it's like, you know, now I have to decide, like, do I just want to tell everyone everything anyway because my character really wants to, or would she try to be responsible with the information? So she picked the one person that, you know, she felt like wouldn't betray her trust over the person who probably could have helped her figure it out faster.
Yeah, I mean, you also picked the person, though, who pretty much always offers a solution of just stabbing the problem away. And they know that. And that's why a lot of times in those... Yeah, and exactly. And in those side chats, a lot of times, that's why I have my character be like, you know, that's interesting. Maybe we should talk to the others who might actually have a solution.
Yeah, but also, like, the stabbing thing has been working pretty good so far, so don't actually have complaints about it. Yeah, it's very effective.
It is effective.
The 7 habits of highly effective murders.
The other thing, too, is honest. Again, I keep coming back to being in character for puzzle solving, but, you know, staying in character for how they would even gather information or think about information. This I actually struggled with a little bit more with the current character I'm playing, because they, especially in the first half of the campaign, were much less like note taking, much less interested in the stuff versus they have been more in the back half. But that, I know, was for the first half was actually difficult for me because I was personally interested in what's going on, but I had to stop myself from being over analyzing or over curious about solving things, because it didn't make sense for the character. So that can be tricky sometimes too, balancing what you want.
Yeah, that for you too, especially because like you're actually good at puzzles in real life, right? Like you like puzzles.
As long as they're not made by Randy.
Well, but you you do the gaslighting thing with information, like with lore dumps, but that wasn't a puzzle, right? Like that was just information someone gave you. But like if Randy was like, there's 3 buttons and one of them does X, Y, you know, like whatever, like I feel like you'd be really good at that. Whereas Silica would just be like, I don't know.
Just stab all the buttons.
Yeah. And I, of course, I've had the varying levels of more physical puzzles versus the more thinker puzzles. Some of them with one that, let's say like a door example, like I have multiple ways to solve it, and one of them could be I just bash the door down, you know, and how each of those can work, and again the kind of consequences of each one versus the correct solution where you get the best possible outcome, which I think is a fun aspect to it, to have just these multiple outlooks and each of them is right, just which is the most right.
Yeah, I mean, you said it before about having divine intervention where like the door suddenly opens and someone from the other side comes through, but like and that or how that could be disappointing. But at the same point, it could also make sense. Like if our characters are sitting there making noise and fumbling around, smashing a door for an hour, you're like, why wouldn't someone from the other side be like, what is going on over there?
I agree. And while yes, the divine intervention kind of would suck for the players, not of that feeling of not solving the puzzle, I think it's worse to have the players sitting there for 3 hours and still not solve the puzzle, because I feel like that's less fun than just being like, okay, we're done with this puzzle, let's just move on, you know?
Well, yeah, it's the difficulty of the puzzle, though. The difficulty could be, you have to find the right balance, or even the timeline or everything.
Well, sometimes it's a puzzle, and sometimes it's literally just total interpretation of what we were presented with. Like, I think 3 times now during major events, Randy, you've given us, like, you guys hear a voice and it says this, and like me and Tuki have interpreted it the same exact wrong way.
Yeah, and I think that's the trickiest part with puzzles and stuff too is at what point does divine intervention help with a situation like that, which for something like that, it's, that is the thing, is open up for interpretation. And, some players take it one way, some players take it the other. But that was one of those situations where regardless, something was going to happen. You had the good ending and the bad ending. And unfortunately, that was a bad ending kind of situation. But my sort of question that I always have to consider is, at what point does solving the puzzle take you guys so far away from the solution that I have to intervene and be like, no, it's not that. Move away from that, please.
Stop looking at the chair.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Just a chair.
Yeah. Like,
please, for the love of God.
Yeah, I know it said it was seated, and then you guys looked at a chair. It was a metaphor. Let's come on, please.
Well, because also, a lot of us are, a little, like, maybe at least a little bit hyper-focusy as well in, like, our normal lives. And so you could be like, oh, there's a pillar and it has writing on it. And then for like 4 months, every time we saw a pillar, we were like, does this look like that other pillar? And you were like, oh my God, stop asking about pillars. I'm going to kill all of you. But we were hype, your brain just like latches on to things and you're like, every little thing is a clue. And you're like, it's actually just so easy. Like, it's not anything, like, we make it way more complicated than it has to be.
That's a good example though, where like if I see a character do that and I kind of had a purpose for it, like I would make that become a thing where you do see the next pillar of like hieroglyphs and you can read it and it's this whole lore thing that connects to all this and it's like this crazy amalgamation and you're like now even more hyper focused and then you end up getting all this information because of this one kind of jokey hyperfixation that I took and just kept rolling with it. But it was the early part of the campaign and like it was in locations that wouldn't make sense, like a snake, God's palace or something,
See, I knew it. I knew the pillar was important.
We
should focus on it.
I knew it
again.
too. Oh my God. Pillar's important. Confirmed.
but no, please. Oh God, what have I done?
Tuki, next week we're going to look for pillars. It's interesting that so it'll be interesting. I think a lot of this stuff always ends up being post-mortem for a campaign, right? Like after the campaign is over, you can go back and be like, okay, did this thing that we did cause you to create that scenario, or was that always part of the plan? Because obviously there's improv on both sides. As you said, if someone's really fixating on something, you'd be like, maybe that is going to become something. You can use those things as prompts essentially for your writing. So it's fun to try to track those things and remember to ask those questions later and just see what the other branches of the timeline could have been.
Oh yeah, for sure. While I need to be one of those people that doesn't reveal all the secrets, there's a lot of the story stuff that I don't mind. But I think secrets that I would be more a little to the chest about would be puzzles themselves, because if you guys didn't solve it and stuff like that, I could use it for another time and change things out to the solution you were doing that time, or something close to it where you guys solve the puzzle that I had, but solved it the way that you guys were trying to solve it the last time.
So we'll have to remember all the previous puzzles because we haven't solved any of them,
no,
and then we'll see them again.
We need to remember our failures.
Every time we're going to have a new way to solve the puzzle, and it's just do it the old way. It's going to work this time.
No, that's what he would expect us to do, so we got to do something different.
No!
Same puzzle, but now it's strawberry instead of vanilla.
You know what?
But the strawberries are made of your blood.
Yep, I guess. and then you just slowly just kill the DM down until he just submits to the solution.
Just wear him down with our sheer stupidity.
Wait, is that an option? I'm just going to keep doing that then.
I have quite the fortitude. Good luck.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I feel like the reason Randy would never give me that ring of mind shielding I wanted is because he actually has it in real life.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to put it in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of the ring of mind shielding and stuff, like, and strawberries and flavors and stuff, what about flavoring, attacks and skills and everything?
No, I don't do that.
I think
That's true.
you do a little bit. You have a couple times.
I do it a lot.
I've done it a lot this time. I didn't really. Well, last campaign everything was kind of sort of specifically homebrewed because of the setting, so it was sort of all flavor, but it wasn't anything that like I had to do as we went. But this time, we've been doing a lot of flavor stuff and a lot of RP and character development stuff based on that flavor. Like, we talked last week, Randy, about the Eladrin, like, season changes and, like, what they mean and, like, when you can trigger them. And I've almost not used them mechanically at all, but I've used them as a character, like, mood thing more than anything else.
Yeah, and I personally think that what nearly all DMs should at least consider is that the rules are merely a suggestion. They're a great tool to help keep a lot of things balanced and in line for the players and the DM to keep things. But a lot of the stuff doesn't need to be to the chest, especially if it's a flavor reason. Like, why can't you have Eldritch Blast look like a Serpent Strike because I'm a snake-based character or something like that, where it just like punches the crap out of someone? That sounds freaking cool. Yeah, heck, yeah, let's freaking do that.
Absolutely. Now I wish I had done that last time.
Exactly. See, there you go.
Or even just simple things like what was it? I was a Fathom of the Deep's Warlock, and I think it was the what was the little
Simic
Eldritch
Hybrid?
Yeah, Simic Hybrid, and the Eldritch Blasts. I think I flavored them as just being like moist or something to that effect. Like it was just kind of like wet, and it was just because of where they were from and what they did. But
Ew.
Even the Gur character. I mean, it's probably a little detail, but like how Silica attacks is usually pretty consistent. Whenever I describe her like stabbing something, it's pretty much always the same way. Like minor details like that, or spells. I mean, I guess you can get pretty big with it too. I've even provided images for what a spell might look like from my character casting it versus. You don't have to do that, but it's kind of fun too.
I mean, even having, like you say, small changes, like just the color of a spell or something, you could probably figure out some way to make it, like as a lore reason, it's that color, or it could just be for flavor, and you don't have to think too much further into it. Yeah, my fireballs are blue. What of it? It's hotter.
I've been using it to keep my classes separate because my cleric spells tend to be like a white gold or like a golden sort of aura, and my warlock spells tend to be like a darker, like a mossy green kind of vibe.
Yeah, and I've had and this can even apply to melee attacks and stuff like that too. Like how even just the way you're holding your weapon, like if you hold it backwards where the blade is pointing downward, it means most of your cuts go up, and then you could do other kind of stab moves and stuff. You can have if you have like a stick or staff or something, then they can, the way that you crack it, where you're cracking it, like knock out their neck, hit their arms, disarm them,
Yeah, or just moves being showy, right? Like I know I did that with my character recently. A lot of their moves now are they're just like, okay, I'm just stabbing. It is what it is. I'm just doing it. There's no show. There's no whatever. Versus before, maybe they would have been a little more like a spin move into it or something.
Yeah, Kung Fu movie style, where you're doing the 2-minute nunchuck spins before you start actually fighting them. And
then Indiana Jones shoots you in the face.
Exactly. Except he's an artificer this time.
I would love to see that battle play out in a D&D campaign.
it can definitely be tricky to show. I mean, you kind of mentioned this before, Rennie, but using the flavor to also show character development throughout a campaign. But that can be tricky because sometimes maybe you are doing it for that, and then sometimes maybe you're not. And then if other players pick up on something that is totally not related to character development and it's just for fun, then you're like, well, that's not okay. I guess now I have to either work that in or explain that it's not. But
or not lean into it. It could even be one of those things that your character jokingly goes, it's not that, or just almost ignore it entirely. There's also the option where you could tell the players that it's not, but like, we're a group who tries to always keep what was said as a character, the character, and then instead of going, hey, that's not the intent IRL, we roll with it and then we figure it out from there. But
and we've had issues with it before too, but I mean, that's totally fine. Like, it's going to happen. Sometimes knowledge of while we're just chatting or something falls into the characters by accident, or, it happens. It's not a big deal. Try to correct it.
We kind of had that this week, but it was sort of intentional, right? Like, I had Domino go into winter, and it was a flavor thing, but it was also like a mechanic thing when usually it's not mechanical. And she had to like tell your character like, no, I'm fine. It's not because of like I'm upset or whatever. It's like a mechanical thing.
I mean, my character just sort of ignored you for a couple of days because you were in winter.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the Eladrin is one of the best examples of something that I, even in the beginning, when another Eladrin uses flavor to change their seasons and stuff and give them more like emotional or just different reasons. It was a lot more interesting than just like, well, wait till tomorrow and then you'll see how I'm feeling.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of, deciding to use it more as character flavor has a little bit backfired mechanically on me, because I would prefer mechanically in battles to always be in spring, because it's the most useful effects for our particular campaign setting.
Yeah.
But if she's not feeling it that day, I don't do it. And then sometimes, like if she's in summer and she has to do a teleport, she can hurt the party. She can it does like bonus fire damage and stuff like that. So occasionally it's become inconvenient, but it's more fun to play it out accurately to like what's going on in their world than just picking one depending on like what mechanic I want to use.
Well, that's a good point though, because that is also part of the flavoring, right? Like maybe you limit a spell because it's just not what the character would do. Or I think we've talked about this before, but picking spells, right? Maybe you don't pick certain spells, even though they'd be fantastic for the character's, kit. It just doesn't make sense for them to have it, and they never would. But yeah, I mean, that even in itself is another flavoring that, yeah, it could be frustrating at times. You're almost purposely weakening something. But it's fun that it has a reason and that it's something that your character would actually do or make that choice.
Yeah, while you have the double-edged sword of not picking, fireball every time, you also don't have the most powerful spells, specifically with spells each and every time, just because they're the best and because, well, my character is psychic-based, so I'm only using psychic stuff, so no fireballs, no elementals and stuff like that. But it also helps you to limit what could be a large spell list and kind of narrow it down quite a bit more.
Yeah, for sure. My spell list is huge, and I basically upfront eliminated like almost all the necromancer based stuff. I was just like, that doesn't seem like something she'd be doing, and that took care of a lot of it. But also, like when it's time to pick upper level spells, it's like, for example, like I recently took the Demiplane spell, because we've been spending a lot of time in demi-planes, and it's like, did Ginger want power word stun? Yeah. But Domino was like, God, I could finally do something about these freaking demi-planes. So it's like, it also depends on if it's relevant to like what they've been needing in the story as well, and not just like what I want to be able to do in the fight myself.
And I mean, my favorite flavoring that I did as a whole, I mean, artificers, they're so interesting. The fact that as a big line of them is that their spells aren't spells, they're like devices, mechanics, and like the idea like that where a fireball isn't a fireball. It could be a Molotov cocktail that you throw and boom, that's a fireball. Which, side note, any martial character can be a spellcaster if they have enough Molotov cocktails to throw off. But aside from that,
Exactly.
like my artificer had the idea of it is kind of the briefcase from Pulp Fiction, where it's this just briefcase that who knows what it does, like and stuff like that. But it also kind of just does everything. So shoot it from one side, shoots the poison darts spell, or I throw it another way, and then it's a healing salve. Which was healing.
See, it's funny that you said Pulp Fiction, because when you told me about that character, my first thought was that you were Honey from Big Hero 6.
That's also, honestly, that's probably the better reference because it fits that more. But I just like the briefcase of unknowing, like what is it gonna do this time? But you're right, it is more Honey because I have control over it.
Yeah. It's like you could pull out like a sticky ball or whatever.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good reference. And that's a good example of referencing a pop culture character into your character as a flavor that, I want to be an artificer whose spells are balls that pop out of, either a gauntlet or a briefcase, and they do the spell.
Whenever I think of Artificer, the pop culture character that pops into my head first is Jinx from Arcane.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily from the game, but in Arcane, how she just constantly was building these weird things.
That's very true.
And, like, obviously she's more mad scientist, right? Like, you never knew exactly what the things were going to do. Like, if it was going to do what she wanted it to, or if she really even knew what it was going to do. So there was, like, some chaos. You could almost say that it was, like, if an artificer also had, like, wild magic.
That would be crazy.
Wild magic artificer.
I mean, I feel like that's all artificers, though, if they have the chance of their devices exploding.
Yeah. Just pure chaos. There's more than one way to tap into the chaos.
I mean, they also made an insane use of ball bearings where I could cast a lot of the stuff on the ball bearings, throw them down a hallway, and suddenly they're a light source for a couple minutes. Some of them could make noises and stuff based off the artificers, which is really cool. And even spells like illusions and stuff and prestidigitation and all things like that like actually shape water as well, where it's limited by your imagination, and shape water is one of the coolest spells because of that ability to use your creativity for it. And if you can't be creative, then hey, your fireball is purple this time.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of this, what we're talking about, is with flavoring of spells or picking spells and skills and all that, is it's just a way to differentiate your character.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like from others. Like, I mean, we have all these examples we've been sharing. I mean, you could imagine you could have probably the same two people playing the same class, but if you flavor and build things out in a way like we're talking about, you wouldn't even know that they were necessarily the same. I mean, a good example is, my character Silica right now is Rogue and Bard, but they're barely using the Bard. The Bard is, everything that they're doing with the Bard is really just to support the Rogue part. So like if we had another Bard in our group, they could be doing completely different things, and it would be like almost, a very, very entirely differentiated character, just from flavoring and picking of skills alone.
Mm-hmm. I know my character for the next campaign I'm getting really excited about because it's heavily already flavored as some really fun things. Maybe heavily influenced by a show I finally just watched.
Uh-oh. I don't know if I'm ready for the next campaign yet.
It's going to be a good time.
It's okay. It's already post-apocalyptic, so the bad stuff's already over.
Oh, great. So we already failed.
Yeah.
We definitely failed.
No, it's the alternate timeline you guys were talking about.
Okay, see, Tuki, all I heard again was that we should just go take a beach vacation for a couple of months before we die. I feel like we deserve
I've
it.
been saying it.
Yeah.
Yep, just bail. Why do we have to save the
I'm
world?
gonna go take a beach vacation now. I think we're done for this week.
Speaking of all of these characters and flavors and quirks and weirdness and whatever else, let's go make one.
Flash round time. This is where we take turns picking one aspect of a character that anyone can use. If you play one, let us know who or what they conquer. All right, you two, roll initiative. I got 16. I'm rolling good tonight.
I got a net 20.
I got an 8. Yeah, I'm just gonna always be last. It's fine.
Yes.
Yep, we have Ginger first, Randy second, and Tuki third.
As it should be.
I disagree.
I wish I could save some of these nat 20s for Friday, but
Nah, I just want you to burn them all now.
I just rolled 2 nat 20s in a row, and
Damn.
We're definitely gonna die on
sucks
Friday.
to suck.
I'll nat 20 on like the dumbest thing.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going first. I'm gonna pick a human.
Oh God, it's a little lame.
I'm out of here.
Not even a variant.
None of you have experience being a human?
No.
Want fantasy in my fantasy games?
Listen, some people like to play a human, so at some point, gotta get in there. But yeah, we'll say variant for sure, because the basic one is just too busy getting Starbucks to go on adventures.
All right. Well, if
Ooh.
they're probably a part of a cult, so there got to be a cleric.
Ouch.
All right, so if they're a cleric and they're part of a cult, let's go with Twilight for their subclass.
Twilight's a good subclass for clerics.
Is it though?
It actually is.
We seem to have a reoccurring space theme with our characters every now and then.
We do, yeah. Twilight's very powerful. Well, I guess if they're a cleric and a part of a cult and very powerful, then for background, we're just going to slot them right into Acolyte.
All right. And they're going to be, as the appearance, the most basic, 5'2" woman with brown hair and brown eyes. And they're just going to whoop the floor with anyone she comes across, I'm sure.
Just real unassuming, kind of. Like you wouldn't expect
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what's this, just average person? Holy crap, she's powerful. Am I seeing God when she hits me?
All right, for flaw, I've thought about it.
Oh, no.
She's very jealous of people taller than her. Should have a good spread there. Can get along with at least half the people in this world.
For her quirk, I'm going to say that she, even though it's a cult, it's supposed to kind of be a secret. She can't help telling everybody about it. She just loves her god so much. She just wants everyone to know all the time.
But on the other side, her phobia is that she's please don't let us be one of those cults. She's afraid that it's one of those cults,
Secretly, she thinks she might be in a bad cult.
Yeah, exactly. She's really hoping it's not, but it's towing the edge, and every now and then she's like, "Oh God, please don't let it be one of those."
But still actively trying to recruit people all the time.
Yeah. You want me to kill who? Oh God, I hope it's a good person. Sorry. Oh God, I hope it's a bad person.
It is a bad cult. I knew it.
Could be anything.
No, that will be up to the DM.
Could even be a boat.
Speaking of a boat, for Trinket, I'm going to say she's got a coffee tumbler with a green star on it. But no one knows what that star represents.
Oh, for extra flavor, it should be the endless coffee.
If they'll allow it, then absolutely.
It's endless coffee. Why wouldn't you allow it? Come on, DMs.
Yeah, come on, DM, Randy.
I allow it.
Good.
Her name, okay, so she's a very basic human. So her name is going to be Becky Farm Daughter.
Wow.
I feel like this changes the whole dynamic, but I love it.
All she has is her, church is all she has.
Yeah.
And her endless coffee.
and may or may not be Midsummer. Now I get it. It's full circle.
Oh no!
If you start seeing a lot of flowers, just run. It's not a good cult. Hey, you made it to the end. Well, if you enjoyed this session and want to hear more, you can find us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at DysfictionalPod for our latest updates and downloads.
Original music for this podcast is provided by Joshua Silver, the artist known as Demonon, on Spotify.
And as we say goodbye for this week, remember that those smallest details are really the least important. Wait,